The Forum, exclusively on Facebook Live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Call in or text live 414-395-0484. Thought-provoking talk radio covering all topics from local to national and everything in between. It may not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, exclusively on Facebook Live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Podcasts available on our website, theforum2.com. Check us out. Join Milwaukee Film virtually for the Minority Health Film Festival, presented by the Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, taking place September 10th through 24th. Watch 50 films plus conversations about the health and well-being of families, communities, and institutions. Festival passes are on sale now at mkefilm.org/MHFF. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Monday, September 1st, 2020. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Once again, right, we're rocked with a bit of tragedy, par for the course, I guess, in the year 2020. When I heard the news of the passing of Chadwick Boseman, who is an accomplished actor, more than, the role that I really came to appreciate him. He played fantastic roles. He played James Brown so well that I thought he was James Brown. But Black Panther, and the reason why that movie was so at least special and spectacular to me is because, and I'm not all that much of a superhero movie fan, but it was important because the movie was just so creative and well directed and designed and produced, and Black children could see themselves as being superheroes. And I know it's just fantasy, but also we have to remember that we come to these positions that we are in life and in society because we don't instill enough creativity, positivity, and optimism in Black children. And so there are so many children that just grow up thinking that they're always going to be less than, or that certain things are not available to them. And clearly nobody can be a superhero, but just to limit a child's mind into thinking that it's never a possibility to be able to have these kinds of dynamic powers is terrible. And it's also painful because even without a superhero status, we all have dynamic powers. And that is why that movie was so incredibly, exceptional is probably an understatement. But the other serious issue that comes to mind is the fact that Chadwick Boseman, who in his own right was our superhero, was vulnerable to colon cancer, which kills Black men at a disproportionately high rate. And we also need to get this cleared up. And there's a lot of health disparities that we talk about. And it's like we get real casual with our conversations of health disparities because we think that Black people and Black men are just inherently more susceptible to disease. And we talk about these health disparities. Like, oh, there's something about the Black genome that is more prone to disease. No, it is how society diminishes us and marginalizes us, and we don't have the same options for healthcare nor healthy food that everybody else has. There's also this really unusual correlation with income. The more money you have, the more likely it is you're going to live in a community that has resources dedicated to health. Because there's one thing that I've known for a long time, and some of you are just getting to know: if you are healthy and you're feeling good, That is your wealth, because then you can go out and be productive. Whatever your productivity is, it could be an entrepreneur, it could be a productive employee, it could be productive out here fighting on these front lines for equality and justice. But if you are not healthy, and if you don't have the necessary resources in your community to support your health, then everything falls by the wayside. We as Black men are incredibly vulnerable in a variety of different ways, and I'm sure you all can see that. But nowhere are we more vulnerable when we're going to the doctor. And I've seen some of the biggest, toughest, baddest Black men I've ever met in my entire life turn into a big old bag of sugar when you tell them it's time to go to the doctor and get a checkup, because it's just another bit of bad news that we may get because we don't take care of ourselves. We don't. But let this be a wake-up call, because we need everybody in this fight. We need everybody to be healthy. I got my first colon cancer screening when I was 42 years old, 8 years younger than recommended. And they found polyps that undoubtedly would have turned into cancer had I waited until I was 50. And quite honestly, I may not have made it to 50. So let me urge the importance of this. And we're taking it a step further, because I am now partnering with the Milwaukee Film Festival, and they are having a special segment, and the tickets and to the events, to these virtual events, are on sale now. If you go over to mkefilm.org, MHFF, and you can see some of the events that are available. But there's a series of films dedicated to health awareness for institutions, for communities, and individuals, because this is an all-encompassing kind of battle. We're not just battling about the racism and the police involved shooting. It's not just that. It's not just the disparate treatment, but it's also the health disparities, because we get real casual and talking about, oh, Milwaukee's a segregated city, and oh, there's so much racism, and they become small talk. There are more details that I really want us to pay attention to, and so I am partnering with the Minority Health Film Festival, and you're going to be potentially hearing interviews with some of the producers and some of the actors who have created these films, the cinema, to get us to focus on these really important issues. I'd like to say good morning to everyone. You may have noticed something different. Have you noticed something different? Look at it. I got a shirt, got a background. Let me also be abundantly clear that this is the first time that I'm broadcasting with these virtual backgrounds through another application. I don't know what I'm doing. And so if for some reason the video stops, I'll probably just restart it the old fashioned way. But yeah, this might be the new format. So far, so good. Let me see what I can do here. Hold on a second. Wait a second. Wait. All right, collect that. Okay. It's more confusing than the normal way I broadcast. So if I'm a little bit slow in responding to people, by all means, but don't worry, I'll get used to it. Okay. Eric Smith, top of the morning to you as well. Star, always glad you're here with us early in the morning. Star, appreciate you. Good morning. Diane Blaylock, today is August 31st. September is Tuesday. Is it really? Oh, it is the wrong day. Look at this. See what 2020 is doing to me? I don't even know what the date is. I guess I got to change the date on the damn video now. Don't worry, I'll get to that later. So I want you to brace yourselves, guys. Those of you that live in Wisconsin, especially southeastern Wisconsin, particularly in Kenosha. So Donald Trump is scheduled to visit Kenosha on Tuesday. And there's a couple of themes that are happening here, and I want us to pay attention, because just the thought of Donald Trump coming to a city that is making national and international attention for yet another shooting in this revolutionary war that is happening in this country. Donald Trump coming is not only fueling the fire, because he just inspires so much rage on one side and then passion on the other, because his supporters, the Trump supporters, are very hardened. Now, if you're a Trump supporter and you're out there, you know, you got a Trump sign in your yard and you want to go to a Blue Lives Matter protest, you are no longer in the shadows. You want everyone to know. Where in 2016, I think there were a number of people that didn't really want their friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors to know that they were supporting Trump. But because Trump represents the deep divisions in this country that some people want to see continue, they're going to be front and center out there supporting him. And so the passionate Trump supporters are going to be out in Kenosha showing support to their president, But then there's everybody else, the people that see how we can't get anything done as a nation. We can't stop a pandemic because of the divisions that we have that are being fueled by Trump. There was also a man that was shot and killed in Portland, Oregon. And there's a lot more to that story, because what you may hear is that the anti-Trump protesters, the Black Lives Matter protesters, are the ones that are violent. What took place in Portland, it's a very detailed story and lots of moving parts. And to the best of my knowledge, there has not yet been an arrest made, but it was a right-wing conservative group member that was killed. And so Portland has been protesting in the streets for 90 days straight. And there was a Trump rally, par for the course, in Portland to be counter-protesting the Black Lives Matter rally. And the Trump protesters, and I want you to be aware of this, especially those of you that are going to go down to Kenosha tomorrow and protest. I really wish you wouldn't, but you guys don't listen to me. They are using a tool of the civil rights movement from the 1950s and the 1960s. When you believe your cause is righteous and just, you remain peaceful and nonviolent so you can show the violence of those that oppose you. Dr. King and the rest, and John Lewis, God rest his soul, did not start fights when they were marching for justice and for freedom. But when the news cameras showed up to cover a Dr. King speech or a Dr. King march, the violence that was showcased to America, and ultimately what got middle America to change its mind, and Northern Republicans and even Northern Democrats to enact and support legislation for civil rights and for human rights and for labor rights and for voting rights, was showing the violence of the white racists. Okay, so now Trump supporters want to showcase the violence of the Black Lives Matters protesters, because what the Trump supporters do is they antagonize these people and they threaten them. And we know that they bring guns. That is a cornerstone of the peaceful Donald Trump Republican conservative protesters. They start out with guns, even if they have to arm children. You ever heard of the Hitler Youth? And I used to didn't want to make the comparisons between Nazi Germany and America because they're two very disparate concepts. And I also never want to minimize the Holocaust. But I can understand how it all started. You had a 17-year-old child that was driven to Wisconsin by his mother, who was from Antioch, Illinois, with a gun that it wasn't even legal for him to own. And he shot 3 people and he killed 2 of them. We are indoctrinating the youth to fight another generation of the race war that has been happening in this country. We just don't call it as such. A 17-year-old child, please don't let that escape or evade your mind. That was a child that was some kind of way indoctrinated or radicalized, just like we talk about these terrorists that get radicalized on the internet. We are radicalizing white children to where they are going to travel from their homes and kill people to protect property. And we believe that. Does that make any sense to you? That someone can have a gun and murder 2 people to protect property. But when people destroy property as a response to murder, then that's the problem. Did you follow that? So I can bring my gun, I can arm a child, I can have a whole cohort of Hitler Youth out here, children out here with their guns trying to protect property that they don't even legally have the right to own. Children can't sign contracts and leases to own property. So you arm these children, and children, we have these laws to protect minors, don't we? We have laws to protect them because children don't have all of the mental capacity to understand the complexities of the adult world. But some kind of way, this child that's, and I'm going to call him a child, even though we want to charge him as an adult, he's a child, and we've got to consider his mind as such, was manipulated in a way that child and that fragile 17-year-old mind that's easily manipulated by things he or she can see on the internet could be the same child that could be vulnerable to human sex trafficking. Right? Just because the child had a gun and killed people doesn't mean that they're different or they're tougher than a child who could have been sex trafficked. Either way, these kids are getting manipulated and they're entering into a war in which they know nothing about. They know nothing about the deep divisions in the history of this nation. And we are indoctrinating another generation of children into this war. A 17-year-old kid killed some people to protect property. But then when people, the democracy, the real American revolutionaries, decide that they want to destroy property in response to murder, then those are the bad people. Trump coming to Kenosha is going to fuel a fire of the division that exists. And we've always known the division is here, but now it's just front and center, and people are not being covert about how they feel anymore socially and politically. It's overt. And there are going to be protests, and they're going to be full of emotion. And there very well may be an antagonistic situation that is going to be supported by the president. Remember when the president gave a speech, this was during the George Floyd protest, and this was in Washington, D.C. The only place that I understand Donald Trump can deploy the National Guard is because he has control of the National Guard in and around Washington, D.C. And he was going to give a speech. And then that's when he walked over to the church and he held the Bible backwards and upside down, and he tried to pretend like he was a Christian, which we know he isn't. I wish a reporter would just ask Donald Trump if he actually ever was even baptized. And so there's a group of peaceful protesters in Washington, D.C. in the vicinity of the White House. You guys remember this? And then all of a sudden, and the newscasters, all of the national news, they were broadcasting this all simultaneously, right? Same time. And the National Guard and local law enforcement just decided that they were going to push through and rush through the protesters. And they were peaceful. The protesters were not causing any mayhem or any destruction. They weren't burning anything down. They were just out there demonstrating their right to free speech. And then law enforcement went on the offensive, and they tear gassed these people. And they formed this wall, law enforcement did, and they pushed all of these people, which of course caused more chaos, more mayhem. And so then the peaceful protesters were more than upset, and rightfully so, because they were doing what they're supposed to do via the Constitution and protesting peacefully. And then here comes law enforcement unprovoked, and they antagonize the crowd. So then what happens next? Then those peaceful protesters, then they pick up rocks, then they pick up bricks, then the buildings in the vicinity are going to get destroyed. But it is the Trump supporter led on and fed by Donald Trump himself that antagonizes peaceful people and then turns them violent, because we know how volatile these situations are. Just America right now with the pandemic and people being laid off and people getting evicted from their homes, that is enough. And now you have these Trump supporters fueled by Donald Trump and his rhetoric that are antagonizing people that are trying to do it the right way, and they're trying to do it peacefully, but you can only push people so much. That is why I'm very concerned about something. If Donald Trump steals this election, where at this point, I think he has to steal it, because who's going to challenge him? His own Department of Justice is not going to challenge him when he steals the election. There'll be a revolutionary war in this country, and I'm not making light of that. I don't want it to happen. It will be a nightmare scenario. But if Donald Trump, if it's overt and it's blatant that he is cheating and stealing the election, if voting machines aren't working in Florida, and all of a sudden there's 10-hour and 12-hour lines in Ohio and in Pennsylvania, and God knows what's going to happen in Wisconsin, the Midwest is going to be ground zero. Because if you look at where the protests really started, it was in the spring. Here we are in the fall, almost. I thought today was September 1st, but it isn't. It was Minneapolis. Minneapolis showed you that they were not only surprisingly immune to the coronavirus, but they would burn down a police station to prove a point. And then you have what happened in Kenosha and the violence that ensued after that. And now Donald Trump coming to Kenosha tomorrow. Now, sometimes they do this. The Trump campaign or the White House, because they're both basically the same these days, will put out a statement, or they'll threaten, or they're going to visit a zone of real discontent. And then there's so much incredible public outcry. Then the Trump campaign and the White House, they sometimes back off. Like there's if he came out with a policy that said we're going to end Social Security tomorrow, and there'd be so much incredible backlash that sometimes they reverse their original position because the public outcry is so great. There is the possibility that they cancel this visit. But Donald Trump and the White House and the campaign being able to take all of this attention leads me to the other theme of what I want to talk about this morning. And that is the Democrats need to go on offense. The Democrats are just like trying to dodge all of these different things that are coming at them and they're trying to respond. You've got the economy, you've got the coronavirus, and you have just the general sense of decency. But then you have the theme of having a Black woman on the ticket and you have diversity. The Democrats, that's all defensive stuff. The Democrats need to take a more authoritative stance against what is happening right now. And it's difficult for Democrats to do that because the tent is so diverse. There's so many different people with so many different issues. Like there's literally people out there right now that only want to vote on climate change issues, not social justice, not police brutality, not low wages, purely climate, right? And look, I'm not faulting those people because the climate is a big deal. It's just we kind of have other fish to fry at the moment. And so the Democrats have to be inclusive of even these microcosmic political ideas that the big tent of Democratic voters may have. There's some Democrats that just want more funding for the VA. That's it. Or some Democrats that just want the availability of more affordable housing. Like those are their only issues. Now, they're more willing to vote for a Democrat because of that issue. But in the Democratic platform, the Democrats have to address every single one of these 50, 60, 70 issues, or what will people say? Because they're more picky when they vote for Democrats. When you vote for a Republican, all you really need is somebody white or someone who doesn't bring up the idea of race, someone that talks about God and religion a lot, and someone protecting your Second Amendment. That's it. Republicans don't have to get into microcosmic issues. It's preserve American culture and then freedoms. That's it. And love the police. Democrats have got to get granular with it. That's because Democratic voters are more intelligent. They're smarter. They're the intellects. They are. I can argue that point all day long. Democrats care about science and math. The Republicans are the only ones that will organize people to have a protest against actual silence, against virology. I don't believe that virology, I don't believe that this coronavirus is real, and have a protest to protest science. You know what made America great? The fact that we had scientists from all over the world come here and develop things and create things that we get the credit for, because we had an attention to detail when it came to science and advancements of technology that no other country could even understand. And so that is what made us great. Now all of a sudden we're pushing back on science. And a lot of it is, so it's defying common sense, obviously, but now we're seeing for America to advance like we used to lead the world, and you name it, I don't even know what we lead the world in other than coronavirus cases, is now America is much more diverse. So when you look at the advancements in, let's say, science, medicine, and technology, a lot of the people who are American, who are leading those advancements that can make this country great, a lot of those people are brown. They're Latino. They are African American. They are Asian. And that is why people are so quick to push back on the science, because for us to continue down that path toward greatness, which we have clearly been diverted from, we're going to need more Black and brown people at the table. And to some folks in this country, that doesn't feel like America. It's beyond disappointing. And because that ultimately is how America is going to pull herself up by her bootstraps, is by being much more inclusive. There are some people that don't even want to live in that world. They don't want to live in that world. That's evidenced by another health phenomenon that we don't pay nearly enough attention to: the deaths of despair. Middle-aged white men are dying. They're offing themselves. And this is not a moment in which I gloat, because it's ridiculous. We just need to get over ourselves. And I wish it was that easy. I wish we would just realize that the only reason why we have skin color is the specific places on the planet in which human beings evolved. The closer to the equator you were, the darker your skin is, to protect from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. The further north you evolve, the lighter your skin is, so you can absorb more ultraviolet rays, so you can make more vitamin D. That's it. That's it. There's no difference in intelligence. There's no difference in any of these other things that we want to make up based upon skin color. That's it. It's basically to protect us from the environments in which we have to adopt to. That's it. And look, we turn the world upside down over one of the easiest, most basic scientific human genetic concepts available. And Trump comes to Kenosha on Tuesday, and God knows what's going to happen. But I am really concerned about November 3rd and had a conversation with our moderator, Justin Fermin. Say hi to Justin wherever Justin is at. He helps moderate the group and he lets you guys argue amongst the in the group more than I do. If this election is stolen, because we all dread 4 more years of Donald Trump, but some people dread it more than others, meaning that the country cannot stand, the republic cannot stand, because we are dealing with people in this nation. We got to be honest about this. That would rather America completely burn down than to see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris reelected. They would rather this nation not exist. They would rather destroy the Constitution. They would rather shred the republic, because if they can't live in a world where Donald Trump is right, then they don't want to be here at all. And they're literally on kamikaze suicide missions because that is what their aim is. They want to make sure that the diversity that can make America wonderful never comes to be, because it will show all this time that white people had just been lying about how great they were. They just use privilege and they use their manipulation of the law and Jim Crow and their manipulation of the police to minimize black and brown folks. Not because they were better, not because they were smarter, not because they were any of those things. It's because they wanted everything for themselves. They wanted all the money. They wanted all the jobs. They wanted all the opportunity. They wanted all the credit. But the whole time black people have been here, we've been participating. We've been fighting in wars. We've been, inventing things and creating things and advancing technology. Even when you segregated us out of your schools, we were still here. There's this overarching fear that if black people get some semblance of equality, we're going to take a bunch of things from white people. We will not. We will probably add more to the repertoire for white people. I was just looking at, just music and the invention of rock and roll, which starts from a blues chord structure, which is uniquely African American. Jazz and blues, two of the most influential types of music ever invented, are black. And they are the heart and the core of country music, of rock music, of heavy metal, of hard rock. It's us. We have willingly contributed everything to this nation. And so why would you think all of a sudden, when we worked this hard and sacrificed so much and buried so many of our leaders and still have more of our leaders to bury, and not just in the struggle for civil rights, but even because of the health disparities, the people in our community that have died because we don't have access to healthcare, or our healthcare resources are just as weak and underfunded as our education systems. Why would you think that we would fight like hell to get some kind of equality? And then once we get equality and we get some semblance of power to where we can make policy, that we would just kill a bunch of white people? It's counterintuitive. We're not like you. And I don't know what else we have to say or what we have to do. And so they need to continue to show black people as monsters, that were violent. And they talk about black on black crime. Let me be clear about this. Black on black crime is not racially motivated. I'm just going to let that be a complete thought. Black people don't kill black people because they're black. It's because there is no trust with the police. Because if you call the police sometimes as a victim, the police may arrest you. It happens all the time. And so if there's a crime that is committed and somebody wants to be a good citizen, they say call the police. Sometimes there's an apprehension because the police may come and investigate everybody and ask everybody for ID. And if you have a warrant as a victim, they say they won't arrest you, but that's a lie. They will. And sometimes people have to take things into their own hands. And we don't want them to do that. But it's weird because when you have a 17-year-old kid who was manipulated, who was literally trafficked, a Hitler youth for the 21st century in America, 17-year-old kid, he takes things into his own hands, and there's college students and Christian organizations raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for this little Hitler youth. We're going to be so embarrassed many, many years from now, because the world is going to look at, because a lot of this is just our fault. And I know we don't want to take the blame and we're on the right side of history, but the future is going to look back at us and be like, oh, you guys were just, how did you let that happen? I got to talk about Ted Wheeler, the mayor from Portland. And a man was killed in Portland, Oregon. And there's going to be more unfortunate deaths. And here's the bad part, right? We know that it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. But we're still powerless to prevent them, because people are willing to die for the fantasy of what they think America is. Let me tell you how engulfed in fantasy and a false alternative reality, like Kellyanne Conway said a long time ago. There's facts and there's alternative facts. Alternative facts say blue lives matter. Being a cop is a job. So so third grade public school teachers, who I would argue could be more important than police officers in some regard in shaping the future, they could be. So what's the color? Like, if you want to say teachers matter, like what color is that? I know teachers in Arizona have used the color red, so it's red lives matter for teachers. Like, you choose a job. This is not the Soviet Union where you're a certain number of people are required to go into law enforcement and you don't have a choice. People choose to be a police officer. Now, the reasons why they choose, that could be a whole nother story, because maybe they want to work in minority communities and shoot people. That could be a reason why. But you can't take the uniform color and make that equivalent somebody's job that they get paid to do and get a pension and then can shoot somebody and get duty disability and still get their salary and their pension even though they're not even carrying a badge anymore. You're trying to tell me that choice of a profession is more important than African Americans who have built this country and still continue to do so? That's a parallel reality. That is how nuts we've become. This goes beyond mental illness. This is groupthink. This is when just institutions brainwash and indoctrinate people against their own best wishes and into an alternative reality. It's just, part of it is patriotism, because we tell people, all right, to be an American, here's how you have to think. To be an American, you need to think critically at the people that are telling you how to think on how to be an American, not just follow all of these rules. Because if you blindly follow the rules, and we've been told to do so, don't cause trouble, make sure you go to school, get an education, go to college if you can, find somebody to marry, you get married, and you have a bunch of kids, all while you're doing that because it's a very strict set of rules. And depending upon where and how you grew up and what your religion was, if you deviated even a little bit outside of what is expected of you when it comes to those rules, you are banished. You were disowned from your family. You're going to go to school. You're going to get married. You're going to have kids. You're going to buy a house in the suburbs. You're going to get a job. You're going to have a 401k. You're going to retire. You're going to buy a boat. You're going to die. You know how depressing that is, because they cannot realize people's natural talents and their instincts to want to do more and be more and participate more and create more. And we're telling people that's your patriotic duty. You're going to go to school. You're going to go to college. You're going to get married. You're going to squeeze out a bunch of kids that you probably weren't ready for and didn't want to have anyway. And you're going to follow these rules. And this is what you're going to do. And then your life is going to be over. While you're doing that and trying to be a good person and be a law-abiding citizen, because don't break the law, don't protest, don't call out injustice, because that may take you off of your square of what you have to do to be a good patriotic American. While you're doing all of that, the world is able to persist. You ever think for a moment, who are the people and what is the interest of the people that are telling us that's what Americans are supposed to do? Just follow the rules. And I grew up in the suburbs, and the white kids that I grew up with, that was their track in life. Now, some of them stayed on that track, especially the ones that did not get higher education and never learned how to critically think. They stayed on that track, and the vast majority of them that did not get higher education, didn't see the world, that didn't explore or explore their own intelligence, are Trump supporters. Trump takes the mentally numb and makes them feel like they're worth something and a part of something greater than themselves. Now, the other kids that I went to school with, well, we're all adults now, we're middle-aged, that did explore themselves and explored the world and maybe traveled a bit and saw how things were different, are now in the fight. Now they're in the revolution. There's a difference, and it's sad. It's sad. The kids that I grew up with and I played with in the sandbox and we played sports together, if they didn't leave the bubble of white suburbia, then the bubble of white suburbia consumed them. It took their dreams. There are people that thought that they could do anything and they wanted to do anything and they could have any job and the whole world was their oyster, but something happened where they diminished who they really were. And they wanted to push back and rebel against this system that tells them you got to go to school and you got to get married, you got to have 3 kids. Because you know what that does when you tell people, when you stifle their natural true instincts and abilities. You take an intelligent person and you don't give them all the opportunities to be intelligent and to live up to their full potential, they become alcoholics. They become drug addicts because inside they are all of these different things, but society and their culture and their religion and their parents and their whiteness and their paranoia and their made up fear of black people drives them crazy. You know how they cope? Drugs. I mean, we can argue about that one all day long because I'm gonna win that argument. And I'm watching this indoctrination behind the American flag destroy people. Shout out to Paula Weckman, BDHS in the house. Good morning, Paula. So because I am using a different platform here, guys, to broadcast, because I got a shirt, I got the background here. I can't see your comments like I should. So I got to get used to this. I mean, I'm surprised it's even worked this well. What up, VJ? VJ, you're an interesting one. Love you to death, man. So VJ Thacker, I've known VJ, Jesus Christ, my whole life. VJ, when did you come to Brown Deer? Were you here in the beginning? Like when I say the beginning, like kindergarten? Look, I'm one of the few people so my parents moved to Brown Deer in 1980, just like a year or two after mortgages were even allowed for African Americans. Prior to 1980, if your family was black and got into Brown Deer, they found a loophole because Brown Deer was a housing covenant community reserved for white property owners for at least one, if not two generations, so that a parent could buy a house and then sell their house or give their house to their children without African Americans being able to obtain the same amount of equity. So it gave white people in the suburbs, and that is how the suburbs were created. Like, you need to know why Milwaukee is segregated, and I don't want to go into that whole long soliloquy, but people talk about how Milwaukee is segregated like it just randomly happened. They wrote down how they were going to do it. They were going to give white families, especially GIs coming home from World War II, the opportunity to own houses and get low interest loans so they could build equity and they can build a nest egg so they could build wealth with no interference nor competition from African Americans. And so my parents moved to Brown Deer in 1980 and I started kindergarten that fall. And I graduated from Brown Deer High School. So I grew up totally in the Brown Deer school system. And there's literally legit some kids that I went to kindergarten with that I'm friends with I'm friends with via Facebook right now. I've known these people for 40 years and I'm 45 years old. But VJ and I, we used to collect comic books as children. And I think maybe we still do collect comic books. But I remember like his dad would take us on Saturday mornings and pick us up and we go to the comic book store and buy comic books. But I've known him for a very long time. And VJ, God bless you. I don't know what you're commenting right now because I'm seeing these comments out of order. You have some libertarian tendencies, but they're not way out of whack. And I got some libertarian tendencies as well. And my thing is this: I have enough to worry about just taking care of myself. That if you're not breaking the law and not hurting anybody, I literally don't care what you do. I really don't care. I probably should care more of what you do. Don't care. I can't be involved or concerned with what other people do because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's understanding of the world is different. Everybody's options and opportunities are different. And who do I think I am that I'm just going to start judging people? Because I can't. Now, if you have been brainwashed because you are mentally numb, I'm going to talk about that because I want you to come back into the fold. I want you to listen to that voice that tells you something is wrong here. Something is wrong with all these people telling me that I got to support the cops no matter what. Something is wrong because they told me just to go to school and get an education and to get married and have 2.5 kids. And you wanted to do more than that. Maybe you didn't want kids at all, but you didn't want to disappoint your parents. You made a lot of your decisions for other people and you sacrificed who you are for somebody else. And guess what? That never works. You will be saddled with a lifetime of unhappiness and alcoholism and depression that you do not deserve. And what I'm trying to say is you don't have to be like that. Look what it's done to this country. Indoctrinating people into a patriotism that doesn't even exist. We're so blind to the fact that real patriotism is people are willing to sacrifice everything to protest for justice. That is what this country is supposed to be about. You don't counter protest somebody's who is out there that wants to has a problem with police shootings. Who do you think you are? How dare you protest the cops that kill people and don't ever go to jail? You know how hard it is just to deal with that aspect of the world every single day. You know how much harder it is when it's people that you grew up with. It's, and so for all of you that periodically check on me, because some of my white friends are now worried about some of their black friends where they never really had to be worried about us before. So I'm fine, but this is not about me. But thanks for seeing if I'm okay. I get just like phone calls. Oh, Sherwin, just want to make sure you're surviving. No, I'm good. As a black person in this country, we always live with this threat. It's just now our white friends are realizing the threat is real. I will say this. So with every officer involved shooting, where it's a black man, white cop and a black man, even if we're getting shot in the back or shot in the face or whatever it is, everyone that happens feels like it's getting closer to me. Even though I may have no connection whatsoever to the person or to the situation, I may never find myself in the situation that some of these folks find themselves in where they're getting shot in the back or the front. But every time I hear about another one, I wonder, is my number going to be called? Am I going to be run a red light or a routine traffic stop that should result in a ticket and a court date? Is that going to be it? Is that how I'm going to die on the side of the road very unceremoniously because of a trigger happy cop that sees me as some kind of a threat when I reach for my goddamn driver's license? So every time it happens, it feels like it's taking a step closer. It's like this impending doom. No one should have to feel like that in this country. No one. No woman should ever have to feel like she may be sexually assaulted or sexually harassed or raped. No one should ever have to feel this impending doom. Yet for some reason, we just accept it. We accept too much. We have accepted that Donald Trump was going to run this country into the ground. You know what we did? Oh, well, they told me just to go to school and to get married and have kids and have my house in the suburbs. Oh, I guess that's just what it's going to be. No, that's not what it's going to be. We have an obligation now, even if you don't choose to accept it, because a lot of folks have never really taken any responsibility for anything they've ever done in their entire lives. Well, it's somebody else's fault. Well, guess what? Now it's everybody's fault. I see the comments coming. D. Robinson, it's no wonder people have a hard time pledging allegiance to something so often used as a counter to everything related to them as human beings. And so when you install patriotism in people, and it's necessary so you can have a military that's willing to fight. Like the military's got to fight for something, right? So America's got to be a place of really high standards and high morals and high ideals so that somebody is willing to go into the military to fight to defend whatever America is. And so we have this necessity to define America as something perfect, but it's never been perfect. And some people join the military because they really want to fight for this country. Some people join the military because they didn't want to fall into the trap of you go to school, you get married. They wanted to see the world. They want to travel a bit. A lot of people that enter the military, the different branches of the armed forces, because they want to get the benefits. They want to travel. They want to get low interest loans to buy a house and to start their lives. They want to see the world. That's what, but what they don't sometimes realize is that any commander in chief can throw you into a war zone without any notice. But you have to make America, and so everything that's in it, right? Even the bad stuff, we have to make an excuse for it. So if we have to install patriotism in people so that they join the military so we can go fight other countries that do, what we're doing to each other. When this happens somewhere else, we go blow those countries off the map, which is really odd. If this kind of tyranny was happening somewhere else, we would send troops because that's America. That's what we do. But then when it happens here, nobody can send troops here, right? So you have to create this patriotic symbol of what America is. So you have to justify even the bad stuff. So there's racism and there's officer involved killings and there's a lack of justice for people and there's a disproportionate disproportionately broken criminal justice system, you have to justify that by saying, no, it's not America's fault because America is great because I signed up for the military and I love the police and I fly an American flag. You have to blame the people that are the victims. And you know what those people are victims of? Your blind patriotism to realize that you're being manipulated too. Black people get manipulated all the time, but not nearly as bad as white people that feel like they have to defend a broken system. That is the worst kind of manipulation because black people have to live with the reality of our skin color. I can't turn this off. I can't. When I walk outside the house, it's like warning lights are flashing all over me. Here comes a black guy. I can't turn it off. If you're white and you have a decent job, got a little family in the suburbs, you can just turn off the TV, turn off the news, unplug, disconnect, and it goes away for you. And I see that's a coping mechanism for a lot of white folks because they say to me, say, Sherwin, why don't you just unplug, Sherwin? You do so much. And a lot of the conversations I've had recently are people saying, you just got to let all this stuff go. You guys got to understand, I can't unplug. I can't. If I turn off my computer and I don't answer my cell phone, I still have to live in this city. I still have to function. I still have to run my errands. I still have to interact with the public and interact with the police. So I can't turn it off. Other people can. If you live in certain neighborhoods where race is not an issue, and a lot of my white friends, God bless them, they didn't know that their friends and their family members were racist because white spaces don't talk about race because you don't have to. You don't have to talk about it. You can talk about how your tomato plants are doing, right? You don't have to. Black people have no choice because so much of our history in this country was based upon how we were looked at, how we were judged, and how laws were created because of the color of our skin. So we can't turn it off. I can't unplug. But here's the other thing. I don't want to. I don't want a day to go by. I don't want a moment to pass where I'm not in the know, where I'm not informed, because that's the other thing. You have to be on the cutting edge of everything that's happening. The more information that you consume, the better chance you may have at predicting what's coming next so you can shelter in place. As we didn't get much advance warning on the coronavirus. It's, oh, China and people are dead in California. It was, oh, hi, BJ. He says, I'm not a libertarian. I believe that we need to have a balance in life, but we should use the Constitution to help guide us in applying laws and rights for everyone. I believe in gay marriage. I believe that we need to have the right programs to help people and provide support when they are financially down or impoverished situations. I also support the Second Amendment. I believe in low taxes. I believe in responsible spending for the government. I also believe that certain crimes, you need a path to have it expunged from your record so you cannot be punished for life by being restricted from many jobs. However, I believe for certain crimes, you should never get out, like sex crimes. So that's a libertarian manifesto. And I'm not saying it like it's a slur. And I don't want people to think that if I refer to a different political affiliation for you, that it's a slur. Like, everybody doesn't have to be a Democrat. The Democratic Party gets stronger when there is a sane Republican Party, so they can debate ideas, and the compromise that comes out of strong Democrats and strong Republicans birth reasonable policy. But it isn't. Have you noticed that a strong Democratic Party, and I don't remember the last time the Democratic Party was strong. I mean, I don't know, 2007, 9, 2008, 2009, but then 2010, the Tea Party came. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. When was the strongest Democratic Party? And it wasn't when the Democrats had the majority from 1954. This is in the House. Democrats had the majority in the House of Representatives from 1954 to 1994 when Newt Gingrich became speaker. When he gavelled in, the Republican Party started to just lose its marbles. But a strong Democratic Party debating policy with a strong Republican Party, maybe when Tip O'Neill was speaker during the Reagan era, I don't know. Because America has always been off. Like, we've never been at our full potential because of the racial issues. So I can't ever say, oh, that was a great time. Because no, there's always disparities and cops killing people and choking people out. But a strong Democratic Party and a strong Republican Party, instead of it producing really good policy, like the compromises, right, from both the parties, what they come up with is like, oh, that is agreeable to 60% of the people. But instead of strong Democrats and strong Republicans producing strong policies and ideas, they're producing third parties, right? They're producing people that want to divorce themselves from either. And so we create this gray area in the middle that can't win elections. All the gray area can do is protest the lack of accomplishment of the two existing parties. And so what the middle parties, these third parties, are going to do is take votes from the Democrats and take votes from the Republicans. And ultimately, you know what that's going to do? It's going to weaken the Democratic Party and weaken the Republican Party so that they will not be strong enough to come up with common sense compromises and ideas, because third parties just embrace random stuff. Even if you got a libertarian candidate for, I don't know, like governor and they won, or a independent candidate, whatever the hell that is, some kind of a hybrid candidate, like independents run on gasoline and electric. They don't have members in the legislature that are going to support their proposals. So even if you get an independent, even a legislator, a Wisconsin State Assembly rep that's an independent, or a state senator, or a member of Congress that's an independent, they got to caucus with one party or the other. They can't sit in caucus by themselves. So even if they get elected as something else, they still got to join one of the sides. And so if you have one of these third party, and maybe in the future, because people are going to get really turned off to politics, especially after November 3rd, some people are going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they may run for office and win as third party candidates. There's no support for your third party ideas in the legislature, because if you get elected as an independent governor or what's one of these? I don't know what they are. The Democrats are not going to agree with you, nor the Republicans. And so you can't go to your libertarian or your constitutionalist party caucus in the legislature to work on policy, because they don't exist. And so I think people are trying to exercise the only independence they can by saying they're not going to vote, or they're going to get real creative and cute with the political parties that they make up by the thing. I don't like the Democrats and I don't like the Republicans. I'm going to vote for the tree leaf party. It's like people that wear those rainbow clown afro wigs. Like, what are you doing? You're just like an idiot. Like they just, like their Halloween costume is just the afro rainbow wig. That's it. Like nothing else. They didn't. VJ, libertarians believe. Why am I only seeing VJ's comments? What's happening? And I can't even scroll. You know what? Hang on. Where are we at here? Because today wasn't just an experiment. But with the experiment that was today, I can do leaders for a better community. That's my. What else we got here? And then, of course, the Minority Health Film Festival, mkefilm.org/ I got to get it right, MHFF. Go check it out. We're going to have a real serious focus on minority health. In fact, why don't we do this since I'm got the background up? Join Milwaukee Film virtually for the Minority Health Film Festival, presented by the Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, taking place September 10th through 24th. Watch 50 films plus conversations about the health and well-being of families, communities, and institutions. Festival passes are on sale now at mkefilm.org/MHFF. Okay, gotta do that. So what I'm gonna do is, I think this is how I was gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. Mayor of Portland, I guess I can talk about it. From CNN, the Democratic mayor of Portland, Oregon said on Sunday it is President Donald Trump who created the hate in an unyielding attack on the White House following a shooting at a protest that left one person dead. Now remember, it's the Donald Trump supporters that go into the crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters and they provoke them. And I got some information sent to me over the weekend that before the man was shot in Portland, the Donald Trump supporters and the Blue Lives Matter protesters drove vehicles through the crowd, almost hitting the Black Lives Matter protesters, because that's something that they do. Like that's just like driving your car through a crowd of people is the biggest act of cowardice. You know what else is a big act of cowardice? Sending people threats on Facebook. I mean, I'm still getting them, and every time I do one of these videos, I get more. And one guy was like, I'm not racist. I listen to Tupac, but I'm gonna get on a plane and fly to your house and kick your ass. What do I even say to that, right? And I don't take, I take threats seriously, but the people that give them need to be a little bit more credible. I mean, I think they know, right? They know that it's not worth them flying on getting on an airplane and coming trying to beat me up or whatever they're going to do. Speaking at a news conference, Mayor Ted Wheeler asked, "Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence?" Quote, "It's you who have created the hate and the division. It's you who have not found a way to say the names of Black people killed by the police officers, even as people in law enforcement have. And it's you who claim that white supremacists are good people." He continued, "Your campaign of fear is as anti-democratic as anything you've done to create hate and vitriol in our beautiful country." His forceful comments come one day after a person was shot and killed in downtown Portland after an evening of violent clashes between Trump supporters and protesters denouncing police brutality. Another fallacy that exists, I think Republicans that live in their bubble and they're conservatives and Trump supporters, whatever hybrid of Republican they are, they think that Democrats and liberals and progressives are not armed. That's just so stupid. That's just a dumb assumption, because those that are who have a more left-leaning political affiliation, because they don't walk around with their guns in public, doesn't mean that they don't have them. I also would argue that there are more people that side with Democratic politics in this country than Republican politics. And if you just have a larger number of Democrats, a larger number of people that no longer want to be a Republican, there are more of them with firearms than those on the right. And the thing is, the people on the right just have more guns, but you can only shoot one gun at a time. And I'm not inciting violence, and I wish it wouldn't be a topic of conversation in our day-to-day lives as Americans, but just don't be stupid, people, please. Okay. What else? I'm so distracted by all these different things. I can't see your comments, for God's sakes. BJ Manu says you can't run for office unless you are rich, regardless if you are running for office with that's a lie, VJ. Cut it out. That's, you know how many poor people I know that run and win campaigns for the state assembly and state senate, I mean, are negative in their bank accounts. That's not true. And if you continue to support that narrative, then good, normal, average people are not going to run for office, because those are the ones that have the policy solutions. Working class people. That's why congressional terms are every 2 years, to give new people a chance all the time. Now, once you get entrenched, that's the special interest. Like, you don't have to be rich to run for office. A lot of people that run for the Wisconsin State Assembly in Milwaukee, and I can't speak to other parts of the country or other parts of the state, they're working class people. Some of them run for the assembly so they can make $50,000 a year. That's a twisted narrative. You don't have to be rich to run for office. And plus, you just need to be able to raise money. Like, you need to know rich people, I guess. But if your ideas are worth investing in, then, average Americans will give your campaign $3 or $4 or $5, and you multiply that times 10, 15, 20,000 people. Bernie Sanders, like, his average contribution, it went up from 2008 to 2000. When did Bernie, he ran in 16. Yeah, 16. His average contribution was like $14 or something in 2016. And then it went up to like $27. But there's 16 million people that give him money. And so I don't think Bernie Sanders is rich, even though he does own a couple of houses and he's wrote a couple of books. But no, you don't have to. I think people just have this real pessimistic view of politicians and of elected officials, because we're not more involved. We just listen to them and believe what they say blindly without critically thinking, and we just kind of lump them all together. I just wish we would analyze a bit more, because when it comes to our personal lives, we analyze things wonderfully, don't we? But when it comes to everything else, we seem to fall short. Well, I guess that's it, guys. I think so. Is that it for the day? Thank you for bearing with me in this new way of broadcasting. Now, here's the hard part, okay? No idea how to turn all of this off. No clue. How do I? Wait a minute. Oh, this is embarrassing. Oh, there it is. All right, guys. Have a nice day. I'll see you later.